This is CBC Here and Now.
We are 100% behind this. We want this to happen.
People get their people's hopes up that they're going to have something half decent in the community, and it don't happen.
Questions swirl about a deal to sell the Stephenville airport.
The town remains optimistic and asks residents to be patient.
March started quite nice out there across the province. However, there is some snow on the way, snowfall warnings for parts of the province.
Facebook campaign based on the premise of the Bell Island Grand Seduction would be a way of letting Dr. AR know that we respect him here, and also to let Eastern Hills know to get off their duffs.
Well, the Grand Seduction worked in a movie, but will it work on Bell Island?
We'll tell you about their plan to bring back a doctor.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Peter Cowan. We begin tonight with a tragic death near Natuashish.
We now know that a 25-year-old woman froze to death after a snowmobile mishap over the weekend. A group of 4 were returning from Hopedale when their skidoos ran out of fuel. John Newey is the Natuashish band chief, and he joins us now. Chief John, first let me offer my condolences to you and to the entire Mushwa Innu community.
Thank you.
What can you tell us about what happened?
The information that I received from the people that were on search when I got home, they dragged the skidoo, from where my cabin was, I suppose, coming into Natuashish, and they dragged the skidoo. They ran out of gas halfway, and they start walking back. I guess they got separated at some point, and this the first group got into the cabin safely, and nobody knew where they were. But the person that came to Natuashish, went to my brother's house and informed me that this happened and so forth. They got just dressed up and went to the site.
Right.
At the same time, my brother called, told his son to call the others. Mm-hmm. To let them know what's happening and to meet at where the gatherings, where the site was.
So we're talking. I've spoken before about some sad stories involving young people, and here we have the death of a young woman, 25 years of age. How are you and the community helping out the family?
When we have these tragedies in our community, we have quite a few past 12 months, and the support from the communities and from the workers, is overwhelming. People are just, don't have time to do anything else. They just want to support the person that is suffering, and this is what I have seen past few hours, and yesterday as well. People going through this family, and it's very unfortunate, that we're used together, but this lady has 3 children, 8, 4, and a 6-month-old. So it's really sad for these children to lose their mother.
Yeah. Well, Chief John, I know that it's a difficult time, and I wish you all the best, and I hope that the community can rally around the family and these children. Thank you for making time for Here and Now this evening.
Thank you, sir.
Well, now to some other Innu Nation news. Kids in both Natuashish and Sheshatshiu were back in classrooms today for the first time this year. Both the Mushwa and Sheshatshiu Innu schools have been closed in favor of online learning because of COVID outbreaks. Now, the youngest students had special packages of schoolwork sent home for them. Both schools are using rapid tests and technology that takes every student's temperature as they enter the schools.
A seafood company based in Arnold's Cove is cutting its business ties with Russia. In addition to local fish, Icewater Seafoods orders cod from Norway and Russia, which gets processed locally. Most years, it brings in about 2,000 tons of foreign fish to process. The company says it's canceled its last Russian shipment, which was ordered a week before the country invaded Ukraine. Icewater Seafoods says this will create daunting challenges for its operations, but it's a move that it says is the right thing to do.
There will be less work in the plant in late March and in April than I thought as much as 2 weeks ago. I don't have the answer right now as to how quickly I can replace the fish. I mean, we have bought fish in Norway through the years, In recent years, we've had primarily Russian supply with some Norwegian, and now we have to switch to all Norwegian.
Memorial University, meanwhile, is suspending all of its study abroad programs in Russia. Through its Russian summer program, MUN students can travel to St. Petersburg for 4 weeks of field school. In a statement today, the president of the university, Vian Timmins, called the military attacks on Ukraine horrific. She says the university is reaching out to local Ukrainian and Russian students to offer support during this time and is reminding faculty and staff to be kind to one another.
Well, the community of Dildo's much talked about sign looks a little different. Since Sunday, its letters have been bathed in blue and yellow light, the official colors of Ukraine. The mayor says the community wanted to show its solidarity with the people of that country.
Well, the Dildo sign, it is usually lit by solar lights, just white solar lights throughout the year. When of course, we heard of the conflict in Ukraine and, the danger that the residents are in and the threat to their democracy, we thought it would be a wonderful way to show solidarity towards Ukraine by lighting the sign blue and yellow, which is, of course, their colors. And we went up, we changed the color of the bulbs and we lit it up Sunday night and it seemed like it went viral, It's funny how such a small thing can make a big impact, The message I would send to Ukraine is keep doing what you're doing, defend your country. It's completely wrong what's happened, and the rest of the world is going to stand with you on it.
Ukraine's president delivered an emotional and powerful speech to the European Parliament today. At one point, as Volodymyr Zelensky talked about a deadly attack on Freedom Square in Kharkiv, one of his English language interpreters came close to breaking down.
We are fighting just for our land and for our freedom, despite the fact that all large cities of our country are now blocked. Nobody is going to enter and intervene with our freedom and country. And believe you me, every square of today, no matter what it's called, it's going to be called, as today, Freedom Square.
Now, during his speech, Zelensky made a personal appeal for Ukraine's immediate membership in the EU and received a standing ovation. The European Parliament later passed a resolution condemning the Russian aggression against Ukraine.
Follow up now to a CBC Investigate story we brought you last week about the airport in Stephenville and what the Ottawa-based Diamond Group has said about its plans there. Now the mayor is calling for patience and says he's confident the deal will happen. Here now's Troy Turner has the details.
Pretty quiet around the Stephenville airport this week. A deal to sell the airport to the Diamond Group is still on the table, despite uncertainty around some of the plans for the property.
There are still a few people in Stephenville that are against this airport deal going forward. But for myself and my council, we are 100% behind this. We want this to happen.
Currently, there are no airlines flying out of Stephenville, but Sunwing plans to offer a regular weekly summer service. Rose says all that can change once a deal is done.
Once this announcement happens and the economics start ramping up in Stephenville, the airlines are going to want to be here because it's going to be an airport that they can make money.
And the mayor remains confident that the Diamond Group's plans will become a reality, saying they will have a huge impact.
Let's keep our fingers crossed that everything is going to work out. Because at the end of the day, this is for everybody in Newfoundland and Labrador. This is a big deal for this province.
Meanwhile, people in the community are weighing in on the importance of the airport and the proposal for it to be privately owned.
I think it would make it a lot better than what it is. Probably fix up things around here too. Maybe they put some money into the roads.
I don't think they should. It's part of our town. It's been here ever since the town been here.
Well, they make a lot of promises for Newfoundland. They're going to do this, they're going to do that. But when time comes, it don't happen. People get their people's hopes up that they're going to have something half decent in the community, and it don't happen. It don't happen at all.
It makes perfect sense to me. Open it up. I don't care who. I don't care who's buying it. Open it up. It would be great, wouldn't it?
While the future and the fate of this airport remains in the wings, we are told it could be up to a month before we find out the final decision on whether or not there will be a deal between the Stephenville Airport Authority and the Diamond Group of Companies. Troy Turner, CBC News, Stephenville.
Well, March certainly came in like a lamb here on the eastern portion of the island. A beautiful evening out there right now, but where did the saying come from? We often hear that, March coming in like a lamb, or in like a lion rather, out like a lamb. So I looked into that earlier today, and Farmer's Almanac said that it has ancestral belief in, or one of the things is ancestral belief in balance. So if something comes in like a lion, it'll go out like a lamb. The other thing is an astronomical connection as well. So the rising star is actually Leo in March, and that's the lion, and then it's Aries in April, and that is the ram or the lamb. So that's definitely that's probably where it came from. But another one I saw was so many mists in March you see, so many frosts in May will be. That sounds a lot more like what will happen here in Newfoundland and Labrador. We'll see how long this lamb-like weather continues. I'll have the full forecast when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, we now have a clearer picture of the status of snow crab stocks off Newfoundland and Labrador. Officials from the Federal Fisheries Department gave an update on those stocks today, and the news is both good and not so good. For the island of Newfoundland, the population is rebounding from historic lows 5 and 6 years ago. DFO says the crab stocks in waters off Newfoundland are healthy, but the same can't be said for Labrador. There, the crab stocks are in what's considered the cautious zone. DFO says they are seeing persistently high fishing pressure and high mortality rates, keeping those stocks lower. Now that DFO has released this data to fish harvesters, it'll set quotas in the coming weeks.
Well, now to the inquiry into the mass shooting in Nova Scotia nearly 2 years ago. We're learning a lot more about what RCMP knew, when they knew it, as they dealt with those initial reports. Officers were getting bits and pieces of information from 911 calls. The CBC's Blair Rhodes has the latest from the inquiry, but first a warning, the report you're about to hear has some explicit language that may be distressing for some viewers.
It's just a little after 10 on the evening of Saturday, April 18th, when the first call goes out.
Chester County members, 355 here. I've got a 911 call about a shooting happened over in Portapique, Orchard Beach Drive, 911.
Bravo 6.
10-4, I just sent it down. It says here 911 husband shot and lying on the deck, SOC Gabriel. Then it says comm said there was an RCMP car in the yard. SOC had a huge gun. Unknown where SOC is now.
The 911 caller in this case is Jamie Blair. Her husband Greg has been shot, and while she was on the phone to 911, she too was shot dead. 15 minutes after that first call, the Blair children, along with Lisa McCulley's children, call 911. The children huddle in the basement for 2 hours. The 3 officers return periodically to check on them. The officers are moving on foot. They feared bringing their cars into Portapique would make them targets of an ambush.
Okay, lots of gunshots in here. 3 gunshots. 2 more gunshots. We're hearing numerous gunshots. Be very careful bringing your car down here to avoid ambush. Except for I'm on foot. Just coming past the first burning house now. Okay, we're just around that corner on foot.
As the 3 officers try to pin down the sounds of gunfire and explosions, they see a flashlight moving towards them. That sparks an urgent and strongly worded exchange of radio messages.
Is there anybody else in here with us? We got movement with the flashlight. Is anybody else in here with us?
What's your guys' position as compared to your vehicles where you left them?
If there's anybody else in here with us, identify yourself right fucking now.
The kids were using the flashlight on their phone in the basement. I know that the kids were using their flashlight on the phone in the basement. The kids there.
Negative. We may have the suspect.
They were wrong. The person with the flashlight was the brother of one of the victims. When he saw the police officer's flashlights, he panicked and ran into the woods. By this time, RCMP had the gunman's name and where he lived. The 3 officers stayed in place and waited until the RCMP's emergency response team arrived. At the same time, RCMP had already learned from a victim who survived being shot that there's a back way out of the community. While police continued to search for the suspect in Portapique, the commission now believes he had already escaped. Blair Rhodes, CBC News, Halifax.
The storyline may be a bit different, but the people of Belle Island are now starring in a real-life version of the feature film The Grand Seduction.
No, they haven't taken up cricket. And
not yet, anyway.
That's true, and they're not hiding $5 bills out on the wharf. But Belle Islanders are trying to lure their beloved doctor back following his departure in the fall.
Resident Ken Kavanagh is making a public plea, and he's gone to some creative lengths to do it.
It's not so much a group, but rather it's just a campaign that I thought I needed to begin here. So I've never been on Facebook, but something struck me one day about the 2013 film, The Grand Seduction.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to announce that a doctor is coming for 1 month.
It was all a fictitious story about a small community in Trinity Bay that was doing all kinds of gimmicks and tricks to get a doctor to stay there. And I said, my gosh, I'm aware of a case where we have a doctor who was formerly practicing here for 8 years, who I know for certain is wanting to come back to Belle Island and be a doctor here again and serve our community. And I just thought I need to bring more attention to this. I know he is well liked on Belle Island, and I thought the idea of a Facebook campaign based on the premise of the Belle Island Grand Seduction would be a way of 2 things. Number 1, letting Dr. AR know that we wish he would come back here, and also to let Eastern Health know to get off their duffs and to make a move and to work with Dr. AR and make sure that he does come back here.
Well, when I first seen it, I said, thank you, thank you, thank you for doing this for us. It gives us an opportunity to express how we feel about Dr. AR in this community. Dr. AR was the epitome of what any good doctor should be.
There's some absolutely phenomenal stories there where people tell their personal circumstances of how Dr. AR served their medical needs and their emotional, psychological needs in this community. So it certainly is doing that. He's got a feel of love from Belle Island.
I was devastated. I knew he was leaving, but I didn't know the exact time in it. And when he said he was leaving, oh, the sadness that came over me. That's all I can say.
Belle Island right now is in a very vulnerable position. Belle Island is a community with about 2,800 people, many of which are elderly. So the average age of Belle Islanders is 66 to 67 years old. And we do have a lot of chronic healthcare conditions on Belle Island. We have very high rates of diabetes, COPD, which is a lung disease. We have high rates of heart failure and high blood pressure, and without having family physicians in the community, then a lot of patients are not being treated properly, which can end up in mortality and hospitalization.
Every single day there's a different doctor at the Belle Island Hospital, and I am thankful for that. I truly am, but it's not the same. Here we are, we had a doctor who was dedicated to Belle Island and was committed to staying to Belle Island. And I beg and I implore Dr. Haggie, Premier Fiore, please find a way to bring this man back to our community who wants to stay here.
We started off 2021 with 3 doctors. Somewhere during the middle of the summer we lost one. Then I believe Dr. AR gave his notice in June, so he left September 30th. And by the end of the year, December 30th, 2021, the 3rd doctor left. So we went from 3 down to absolutely 0. Eastern Health keeps saying that they're trying their best to get people to come here, but they can't recruit somebody to come here. And they're quite aware that Dr. AR is willing to come back here. They keep saying they're trying to get somebody for here. Well, we have someone who wants to come back to Belle Island. Get him here. When I wrote the minister back in September and I wrote the CEO, I asked for 2 things. Number 1, I wanted an exit interview done with Dr. AR. And number 2, I wanted an investigation of the Belle Island healthcare worksite here, because it's my understanding, and I feel very strongly about this, that there may have been operational issues. There may be politics and other matters with respect to the workplace that may have in fact caused him to say, I think I need to move on. So when you lose 3 doctors in a matter of 6 or 7 months, that tells me there's something wrong.
The Premier, Health Minister and Registered Nurses Union held a press conference here at the Sheraton Hotel this morning to identify some of the problems and possible fixes.
Our nurses are tired, they're angry and they're frustrated.
I understand that the system was broken before the pandemic, and I want to make sure that we're working collaboratively.
Jeremy and I'll have that story coming up.
Well, a beautiful evening out there, cold, but we do have some snow on the way tomorrow for the southwest. I'll have the full forecast coming up.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Ashley, we take our hope wherever we can get it these days. Yep. And I had a little bit of hope when I saw that live shot outside, and it's not perfectly dark, which means it's getting a little bit lighter every day.
It is, and March is when we really start to see that sunlight come back, mainly because we spring forward an hour, and that will happen March 13th. Let's take a look at those numbers, though, where we sit as far as sunrise and sunset times. By the time we start today and then end March, you can see most areas will see between an hour and 43 minutes to as much as 2 hours and 5 minutes more daylight through the month of March. So certainly seeing that as we head through the end. The other thing that we're going to notice, or you will notice, is that the March temperatures, we really spring into spring, so to speak, with the temperatures average around -11 through Nain, -2 in Corner Brook, -1 in St. John's. And then by the time we get to the end, we're already above 0 for most areas, a little bit below up across Labrador, particularly the west and north. But we're definitely going to start to see those temperatures warm today. Not so much, well below where we should be sitting, in fact, across the island. Daytime high in St. John's, -7, -12 in Corner Brook today. And then those temperatures up across Labrador in and around the -teens. -15 was the afternoon high in Cartwright today. Taking a look at the satellites picture today, pretty nice out there. We're losing that daylight as we speak, but you can see not a whole lot happening. We are seeing some onshore flurries, the story for the west coast. But if I zoom in a little bit, we're starting to see that ice form, and you can see that pretty beautifully with that clear sky today off the coast there. So cooler temperatures going to stick around as we head through the night tonight. Already seeing those wind chill values into the -teens, -17 for St. John's right now, -20 in Corner Brook, and up across Labrador. You're looking at those temperatures into the -teens, like I said, but then feeling more like -29 in some cases. So those temperatures overnight tonight are going to stay quite chilly. A little bit of wind as well out of the west, about 20 to 40 kilometers per hour up across Labrador, mid to -20s. Factor in that wind chill. It's going to feel like the -30s, even across the island. This morning woke up to a pretty chilly wind chill as well, but going to feel more like -20 in St. John's by the time we get to 3, 4 in the morning, and then tomorrow morning going to feel like the -teens. So if you're heading out, make sure you are bundled in a few layers. Over the next day or so, expecting some snowfall, particularly for the southwest. Snowfall warnings in place for Port aux Basques and Burgeo, and we will see that snow move in as we head through tomorrow afternoon. So flurries the story tonight along the west coast in that onshore flow. Otherwise, not a whole lot happening, but then main event moves in as we head through tomorrow afternoon. The snow will get heavy, particularly in the afternoon for those southerly areas. Most areas will be seeing snow through tomorrow, and then that will move off fairly quickly overnight into Thursday morning. So as far as snowfall amounts go, this takes us through to Wednesday morning. So this will be the overnight flurries, still looking at about 2 to 5 centimeters in those areas, and onshore flurries along the west coast. But like I said, the biggest amount of snow will move in through the day on Wednesday, and most areas along the south, 10, 15, 20 centimeters certainly possible. Higher elevations may see a little bit more than that, closer to 20 to 30 centimeters through the afternoon. And then even up across Labrador, some areas could see between 5 to 10 centimeters by the time we get into Thursday. Temperatures tomorrow a lot warmer than what we're seeing today. Around -2 for St. John's. Those winds are going to stay brisk again, between 30 to 50 kilometers per hour out of the south. As we head towards central, you'll see those clouds on the increase, particularly in Gander, and then eventually some snow through the afternoon. Grand Falls winds are -2. Not looking at a whole lot in the way of accumulation for you, maybe 2 to 5 centimeters. And then winds will be brisk along the west coast, even southern areas. So as you're seeing this snow, you'll likely even see some blowing snow through the afternoon. Northern Peninsula, -single digits. Cartwright, -10 through the day. Winds relatively light. And then as you head towards Lab West, you're looking at -13 through the day. Nain, sunshine, and -16. So that's a look at the forecast. We'll look ahead when I come back.
have the nurses gone? There is somewhere between 500 and 1,000 nursing vacancies in Newfoundland and Labrador. Now, together, the province and the Nurses Union announced a number of initiatives today aimed at finding and hiring nurses and keeping them here. Here now, Jeremy Eaton has that story.
How are nurses in this province feeling these days? The head of their union isn't mincing words.
Our nurses are tired, they're angry, and they're frustrated.
We know the system needs fixing.
Today, the province acknowledged there is a problem, and the Premier laid out the framework trying to fix the nursing crisis.
I understand that the system was broken before the pandemic. It has been there has been a huge exposure of gaps in the system because of the pandemic, and I want to make sure that we're working collaboratively to ensure that we're closing those gaps, fixing the system to support our nurses.
But before you fix it, you need to understand it. Next month, the province will host a virtual think tank and will produce a report on how Newfoundland and Labrador can keep and recruit nurses.
Today is a start. We have to keep building on this. This nursing think tank that will happen on April 4th and 5th will be our opportunity and chance to come up with some innovative, out-of-the-box ideas, short-term measures that can improve the work lives and the workplaces for our members.
A number of requests for proposals were announced as well. Titles like the Registered Nurse Workforce Research Initiative and the Health Human Resource Plan.
So instead of just going out and trying to make it up as we go, we're going to research this, we're going to understand it, but we're equally trying to acutely recruit at the same time.
Another move by the Health Department is hiring an Assistant Deputy Minister to head up a new recruitment office for healthcare professionals. The province will also spend more than $400,000 to help more than 40 internationally trained nurses get accreditation to work here. And the union supports all of this if it means filling the hundreds of vacant nursing jobs.
The big thing for our members is they want something concrete, something quick that will impact their lives and improve their work life and give them a day off. We have registered nurses today who are looking at me saying, Yvette, I can't get a day off.
Carbonear-based Nikki Parsons has spent the last 30 years working as a registered nurse. Taking in the announcement this morning in St. John's, she says she's cautiously optimistic.
Doesn't mean much right now to the nurses on the ground, but it will have long-term effects, and it'll improve how we care for our patients and ultimately how we care for ourselves.
The world of nursing has changed a lot since the days when Parsons was just starting out. Now the hope is to bring about a change before it's too late. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
The healthcare system is facing a new shortage. It's not masks or gloves. This time there's a shortage of the tubes used to collect blood. And behind the scenes, Eastern Health is changing the way it collects blood to make sure it doesn't run out. Corey Murray is the Regional Director of Laboratory Medicine. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Peter.
So give me an idea, how hard is it to get these tubes right now?
Well, Peter, we were notified back in December of 2021 that the manufacturer was experiencing what they referred to as rotating back orders, meaning that a product may be available one week but not the next. Fortunately for Newfoundland, we have not ran into the same situation that we have seen in some other parts of Canada where they're running out of supplies. We have been able to maintain our supply inventory to adequate levels to continue to provide services.
So why is it so hard for them to be able to continue to supply them?
So Peter, that's a great question. The indication that we're getting from the suppliers is it's kind of related to the pandemic, related to supply chain, transportation, and workforce, as well as getting those raw materials to produce those products.
And is this the only supplier that makes these?
So there's two main suppliers for blood collection tubes in Canada. And both are experiencing the same types of restrictions.
Okay, so knowing that you may not always be able to get all the shipments you'd normally receive, what are you doing to make sure that you don't run out of them?
So we've taken a number of steps. One is that we are looking at our inventory and assessing it on a daily basis. Our supply chain then are working with our suppliers and the manufacturers to ensure that we are receiving those supplies, particularly if a product is on back order. We will work with the vendors as well. So they will look at what they refer to as a manual allocation, where they are going to provide us a priority sample. So if our inventories are growing low. In addition to that, we've communicated to our stakeholders, mainly our physicians, advising them that this is a potential risk and asking that they ensure that when they're ordering tests that they're doing it with that in mind. And additionally, we're actually looking at some changes internally to the number of tubes that we're using when we're collecting samples. We're also looking at using alternative products. So often there may be 2 tubes that we can use for a particular test.
When you talk about those changes, I'm thinking the last time that I went in and had a blood test, they always seem to take several different vials. So when you talk about reducing it, how are you able to reduce the number of tubes they have to take when someone does have to get a test?
So often, so Peter, I guess if I could make it kind of simple for most people to relate to, a particular blood collection tube has often had a color. So one tube may be able to have multiple different tests performed. Often those tubes would go to two different laboratories. In this case here, we may be able to use one of those tubes to send it to 2 different laboratories. And that's the changes that we've made.
So what does this mean in terms of the volume of tests that you can perform?
So it doesn't actually change the volume of tests we're performing. What it does change, though, is the volume of tubes that we're consuming.
And so what's the recommendation? You mentioned that you've told physicians, for example, to try and be a little more careful about what tests they order. What is the recommendation? What tests should go ahead and which ones maybe should wait a little while?
So that's kind of a difficult question for me to answer. It's really the physician's knowledge here that would come into play. But I can give you an example. If somebody's coming in and feeling very healthy and it's kind of like, your annual checkup, those are the cases that we think, you may not need to order that blood work. But again, we would refer to the medical decision here.
And how long do you expect these shortages to last?
So the vendors, the suppliers have indicated to us that they're expecting this to last at least until the summer of 2022.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining me and telling me about this.
Thank you, Peter.
A restaurant in downtown St. John's recently opened up its kitchen to an aspiring pizza professional. He's originally from India and came to study safety engineering at MUN. And now he's making sourdough from scratch and trying to get his new business, it's called Black Cat Pizzeria, trying to get that off the ground.
The crust is the superstar of the pizza, and it has a really crunchy yet really thick and fluffy crust, so it's really light. And the sauce is made from super high quality tomatoes and use a blend of spices, some of it inspired from my own home region. So I am originally from Kerala. It's a small province in India, and I came here as an international student. I did safety engineering at Memorial University, and as a part-time gig I was working at a local pizzeria here. And once graduated, I decided that I wanted to open my own place if possible. It all started on social media, especially on Instagram. That's where I was posting my photos of the pizzas I make, and my friends shared it, and their friends wanted it, and they shared it as well. I saw an opportunity here in NL that no one was actually taking, and I decided to take it. That's basically it. Nobody was really doing the kind of pizzas that sort of like a square pizza, having a really nice fluffy thick crust, which a lot of Newfoundland people like. Yeah, so I just started making it for my friends, and they really appreciated it, and they gave it to their friends, and it just went on like that. And I saw that people were asking me if they could buy this, and that's when I decided that there is a market for this, and just to give it a shot to do it professionally. So we're here at Terre Restaurant downtown, and the owner has allowed me to use his kitchen to do a practice pop-up. The reaction was extremely good. People has been asking how they can buy this, but unfortunately I couldn't start selling them from my house, so that's where the Terra Restaurant comes in. Terra Restaurant owner, he had one of my pizzas and he really liked it, so he was like, do you want to come do a pop-up here? And that's how we ended up here. In terms of work, I do a sourdough base. So it starts off by feeding my starter. I do that like 2 days before the day of pop-up, so the work actually starts like a couple of days before. And yes, I try to do everything from scratch as much as possible, so the dough is mixed with hands, and there is not a lot of machines involved in the process, so everything is made from scratch. The sauce is made from scratch. The cheese, I dice the cheese myself, and even the box, the logo is printed by our own means, and we're trying to get some stamps to do that. So a lot of labor goes into it, and also a lot of quality products go into it.
I love it when they put food stories on at 6:45 on this program. Unfortunately, you can't order from Black Cat Pizzeria just yet. They're still in the testing phase, but Tom invites people to keep checking his Instagram and Facebook pages for updates on his next pop-up shop.
U.S. President Joe Biden is preparing to deliver his first State of the Union address. The annual tradition comes as the world reacts to a deadly conflict unfolding in Eastern Europe. The crisis in Ukraine is expected to dominate Biden's message today to his fellow Americans. The White House is expected to highlight its pandemic response, and for the first time in months, those attending the address at the U.S. Capitol will not be required to wear face masks. Biden is also expected to outline his administration's domestic priorities, many of them fiercely opposed by his political rivals. Meanwhile, security has been increased around the Capitol today as Washington braces for trucker protests, similar to the ones in Ottawa. Tensions are understandably high right across Ukraine, more than 500 kilometers west of Kiev. In the city of Lviv, people are preparing for a fight with Russian forces. The CBC's Susan Ormiston is there.
In the city of Lviv, in western Ukraine, hundreds of kilometers from the worst of the Russian attacks, they're getting ready. Look at this. This is a neighborhood. High-rise apartment buildings all around here, just on the outskirts of the city. And here's what they've built all day, filling these bags with sand donated by the army. They've posted this Ukrainian flag as if there's any doubt of their pride or allegiance. They've taken some instruction from the military about how to make this barricade strong enough to repel any attack. And Over here, there's an interesting list. Things to watch for, cars with license plates. Here they are, given by the police, saying these are Russian sympathizers. If you see them, don't let them in and make sure you call police. Over here is sort of a command post built up by this guy right here. Here they've got openings to look out, expecting that they may have to be on guard for whatever happens next. They don't know if the Russian attack will come here to Lviv, but they can't afford not to be ready. We spoke to a 23-year-old who lives in this apartment block with his 2 brothers, a sister, and his parents. This is what he can do to make his community safe. Susan Ormiston, CBC News in Lviv, Ukraine.
The torch relay for the 2022 Paralympic Games will be held this week around the 3 competition zones in China. And yesterday, there was a ceremony half a world away to mark that. This was the scene in Stoke Mandeville in the UK, known as the birthplace of the Paralympic movement. 2 British wheelchair curlers lighting the flame, which will be flown to Beijing and merged with flames from the relays in China. The opening ceremony for the Paralympics is on Friday. And there will be a minor disruption to our show next week due to CBC's coverage of the Paralympic Games. From Monday to Friday, starting on March the 7th, Here and Now will begin a half hour later, starting at 6:30 Island time. But unlike the Olympic Games, we will remain a full-hour show. We'll just be on a little later. So again, that's next week. Here and Now will be on from 6:30 to 7:30 Island time to accommodate the coverage of the Paralympic Games, and a half hour earlier in most parts of Labrador. The Coast Guard says sea ice around the province has been increasing over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, there are large pans of heavier ice developing all around the island and pushing down from Labrador to the northeast coast.
Now it says this year should be on average for Newfoundland when looking back at the last 30 years and above average for Labrador, but it may not be anything like the situation in 1983 when there was so much ice some communities were stranded.
Yeah, so here's a look back from our archives.
And finally, pack ice and icebergs continue to imprison whole areas of Newfoundland. Ships and communities have been left stranded and food airlifts have started. The ice conditions have even affected communities far inland. One of them, Badger, is so badly flooded it's been declared a local disaster area. Today, they tried to blast it free. Barbara Yaffe reports.
An armed forces demolition team blasted the ice jam today, but the effort was unsuccessful and water is still rising in the flooded community. The crew will try another blast tomorrow. There were relief efforts elsewhere today. Food was airlifted to an island isolated by pack ice. There's ice and more ice around Newfoundland right now, overwhelming whiteness. Jam-packed in the harbors and bays. Bell Island's only link with Newfoundland is the ferry John Guy. Phone the ferry office these days, and here's what a recording will tell you.
The ferry John Guy is now tied up at Bell Island due to extreme heavy ice, so the service will be discontinued till there is a change, I guess.
That means stranded passengers who are shelling out for helicopter rides. Some islanders are beginning to feel like prisoners.
Like the fella says, just for me in jail. You know, that's what it's like.
The Coast Guard says all available icebreakers are at work and more are being brought in.
We have 4 icebreakers on the east coast here, and they're not doing too well because the conditions are so severe. They're pretty well stopped. It's pretty well brought shipping to a standstill.
And shipping isn't the only problem. Fishing trawlers are also in trouble. National Sea has diverted some of its trawlers, loaded with fish, to processing plants in Nova Scotia. That means layoffs for workers at 2 Newfoundland plants.
Talking a total of about 700 odd people, and as I see it at the moment, unless there's a real break in the weather, both of these plants employing these people could be out of operation for up to the next 2 weeks.
The ice problem is the result of persistent winds that have pushed northern ice down toward the Newfoundland coast, and those winds are not expected to shift soon. Barbara Yaffe, CBC News, St. John's.
I guess it's a reminder, Ashley, that nothing's so bad it couldn't be worse when it comes to the weather in Newfoundland and Labrador.
True. I love when we have those archival pieces.
Yeah, no, it was quite the different picture of the amount of ice that they had right around, like even in St. John's Harbor there, where normally you don't, it takes a lot to get some ice in there.
It does, that's right, and those winds.
So how are the winds looking?
Well, not too bad really over the next couple of days. It'll be a bit breezy tomorrow, but as we head through Wednesday night into Thursday, the next system's going to move in. So let's take a look at that quickly. There's what's going to bring the snow Wednesday evening. That should taper off, moves through fairly quickly. However, through the overnight into the first half of Thursday morning, we're looking at the chance that we could see a few showers for the Avalon and then a break through the afternoon on Thursday. Now the next system will move in quickly right behind that, so we'll see some snow again develop. It should move south of the island, but still bring some snow with it through the overnight Thursday into Friday morning. Temperatures up across Labrador again not moving too much into the minus 11 to minus 18 degree range through the day, and then temperatures for the island will sit somewhere in the minus single digits. Again, the Avalon in the first part of the morning above 0, and then those temperatures will drop as the day goes on. Now Thursday evening, there's that system, moves through fairly quickly, should stay on the snowy side of this one through the night, and then by Friday morning again moves off fairly quickly. We should see some lingering snow though on the west coast and southern areas of the island through the day on Friday. Temperatures again, back down well below zero. So we're looking at daytime highs in and around -6 for St. John's, -11 for Corner Brook, and then temperatures up across Labrador into the minus teens. Sunshine and -18 through the day for Nain. Looking ahead after that, temperatures should stay below zero. Some flurry activity expected on Saturday. And then as we head into Sunday, we're looking at about -4 with the mix of sun and cloud through the day. So a nice end to the weekend at least. As we head towards central Newfoundland, same thing with flurries on Saturday. Into Sunday, we're looking at daytime highs in and around the minus single digit, overnight lows dipping into the minus teens. And then for western Labrador, western Newfoundland, the flurries or light snow will continue right through the weekend. Taking a look at eastern Labrador, not a whole lot happening. Some snow tomorrow, and then Thursday as well, a few flurries. Friday looks pretty nice with some sunshine. Maybe a few flurries returning on Saturday. Sunday looking lovely with lots of sunshine. Then for western Labrador, flurries and some gray skies for Friday and Saturday. And then Sunday looking beautiful, temperature around -12. Take a look at this shot. I thought this was so cool. Windswept snowshoe tracks.
What?
I'm trying to figure out how that even happened. Well, I guess the compacting of the snow, and then everything else was fairly light, and the wind swept it away. So
it's like
Yolanda,
art.
Great shot. Yeah, it is like art. If you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Very cool.
Wouldn't take a detective to figure out where people
Where
have traveled.
people were going.
Which direction they were headed.
Exactly.
Oh, that was Pippi Park, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. So, Peter, I was thinking of you when I got back from China because I had to do these self-tests for 5 days when I got back. All of them negative, by the way. I should have told you that before.
Now you mention it.
There's a briefing tomorrow?
Yes. So, yep, we are expecting an update tomorrow. It's just with the Health Minister and the Chief Medical Officer of Health. No premier for this one. We'll get an update on whether they're still planning to lift all the remaining restrictions by March the 14th. That's the next date that they're looking at making some changes. So we'll find out tomorrow what the details are. And then, of course, we'll have all the details for you tomorrow night on Here and Now.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for watching.
Have a good night.
Good night.
See you.